those that are new to Unitec or relatively new, Tuesday is also a public holiday, okay? I made the mistake of coming in here once when I first started because I was half employed by Unitec and half employed by consultancy. And the consultancy said, do you want to come in and work today? I said, no, I've got teachers' duties at Unitec, I've got 2 classes. And they went, okay. And I came in here and it was like a ghost town on Tuesday. So it's the same with a lot of public services in New Zealand, right? So 1 or 2 of them you'll find will be closed on the Tuesday. So back to our tutorial. I realised that this coming Friday is a public holiday. I realised that the next Friday there's no panic because the hand-in isn't till the following Sunday. So it'll be in 2 weeks' time that you'll all be bowling into that tutorial and pestering my friends at the back of the class for as much information as you can possibly get out of it. So I would suggest that next week, not this Friday, next Friday, that you bowl along with as much done as you can, and you'll probably be one of the only ones in here in the room, and you'll get almost one-on-one tutoring. If you leave it to the following Friday, I would say it'll be one on about 100 tutoring, which will all be in there, crammed in there asking you questions. The next thing that I was going to go on to do was show you my famous spreadsheet. I keep calling it mine. It's not mine. It was given to me in my very early days of teaching here. And I want to go over each of the columns for various reasons, which I'll get into in a minute. Then I'm going to show you a little class exercise with the answer. And the reason for that is that you're going to have to do this for the assignment. So how does it work? I'm glad you've asked me that. I need my student beating up stick. Is that around in here? For the windows. Is that one down there? No. Looks like another lecture's probably broken it over the student's head somewhere. Never mind. So I'm not going to be able to do that. So I'll see if I can find some sort of pointer. Something over here might do the trick. What do you know? At least I could beat them on the head. Alright. Well, that's all on film. Oh, fantastic. Lecture of 300 students. Okay, let's get away from that subject. Let's talk about the spreadsheet. So each each row along here represents a cross-section in terms of an area. So you all know that how to get an area by going around with a P-line. So you do a P-line around something, enclose it, list it, and it shows you the area. I think you would have done that with Ingrid with your civil drawings, I think. So that's easy enough to find the area of the cut and the area of the fill, right? So you're going to be doing slices through or sections through and working out the areas in each case. That's cool. 1 mark for drawing that on the board with the areas beside each one of those sections. Obviously you've got a distance between them. And so how do you put it into the spreadsheet? It's actually reasonably easy, it's not that difficult. One thing you need to note is that wherever you start from, that becomes a 0, and you always got to put these 2 zeros in there. So, I said I would demonstrate it on the board, so I will. What have I done first? We'll do it over here. So here's your lovely drawing of your platform, and your fill is going to be quite a bit bigger than your cut. Your cut might only go out like that. And I joked about that being butterfly wings and the butterfly going into the sun. Remember that 2 weeks ago? Okay. What I'm wanting you to do is to take your first cross section through here. Now someone's going to tell me that's wrong already. You never put that bit in. So I hope that you don't do that on your proposed plan. You only have a flag each end. So the first cross section is going to be actually 0, which will be this one here. Now don't worry about the chainage at the moment, because the chainage for you won't be 190, it'll be 0. The reason why that chainage is 190 is because it's along a road, and you're very rarely going to have a road starting at 0. Like take State Highway 1 for example, starts way down in where my cousins come from, down in the South Island, in a place called Bluff, and goes all the way up to the tip of the North Island, a place called Cape Reinga. And that is probably closing in on 1,000 kilometres, somewhere between 600 and 1,000, or 800 and 1,000. And so when they repair a bit of State Highway 1, and you've all been on State Highway 1 and you've all seen them with their cones, and probably some of your classmates out there doing some of the work too, they always start at the chainage. And the chainage could be, let's say it's 1,000 kilometres long. Chainage might be 623 kilometres, 0.24 or something like that, and that would be the first one up there. Even just if they did some tar sealing in your road, for example, your local road, and they started at house number 10, they finished at house number 24, that also would have a chainage on it as well. So whenever you're talking volumes or roads, there's a very high likelihood that that first number isn't 0. So don't be confused by it. I've tried my best to confuse you in the test because I play around with that first number, right? Just because I can, and because that's what you're going to have to get your head around if you're going into the workforce. In this case, when you're doing the first section, it'll be 0. So that's easy. There's your first start point. Then you have already got one that goes through here, because that'll be section AA or BB depending on what you call it, and there'll be a last one that goes through here, the tip of that. Now they're very easy to put in, those two. That one is going to be your last one, and that'll actually be 0 cut, 0 fill. And the first one will be 0 cut and 0 fill. In this case of the road, it's a bit different. There's a little bit of fill in there. So don't get confused by that. This is only me explaining that sheet and what you need to do for your assignment. So we've got 1, 2, 3. I expect at least one more going through here, 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 and here's the golden marks. I want one that goes through there and through there. Now, I've already demonstrated to you how to do the one in the middle, and we put the platform on, and then we put this on and we put that on. That was 1 to 1, that was 1 to 2, easy. We put a P-line around it, and we've got an area, P-line, area. That's that one. The end one, this one, the in-between ones may be very different to that. What are these ones going to look like? Well, they're going to look, this is your only clues, they're going to look sort of something like this. Because you're going to get a bit of cut and a bit of fill and a gap in between. It might be a bit different to that, but it'll have a gap in between. What's the easiest way to draw it? Do it on a whole contour, because that line there will determine, that's a whole contour that you're going through there. That'll be the contour height there, and if you're going through another contour over there, that'll be the contour height there. Then you only need to use the batter slopes on the side. Okay, so you're going to do, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Somewhere between 7 and 9 cross sections. Each one of these, I want you to put the area on the top of them. And that's a mark for doing that correctly. Now I'll let you in a little secret. I will only be checking one. But usually I can pick the right one to check that you haven't drawn it correctly. Just because I can kind of eyeball it, and let's face it, by the time I'm marked 30 something, you know, the one that's not right will stand out. Also, you need to remember what these distances here are, or at least measure them, because they will form your chainages. So say that is 1 metre, 1.2, 0.9, 1 metre, 7.2. Well, they will be in this column here, the interval. That's the chainage, that's the interval. To get an idea of what the difference between the two is, if I was to walk into the city right now, as I'm going past them, like, oh, that's 10 metres, 20 metres, 30 metres, you can hear me weighing the distance, 120 metres, 4 kilometres, whatever, that is a chainage, because I'm adding it up as I'm going along. An interval is quite simply the distance between each time I was yelling out a number. That pretty straightforward. So as you can see there, 20 plus 190 is 210, plus 20 is 230. Then it gets down here, and at the end there you can see 380 plus 50 equals 430. Now the cool thing is, if you put that, the two areas and the interval in there, this spreadsheet goes brrrr and gives you a number at the bottom. That's pretty cool, because you're only really duplicating your own work. So what do you get for doing the spreadsheet? Half a mark. What do you get for pasting it into your drawing? Another half mark. And it doesn't, as long as it's about the same text height as your text and model space, I'm happy. If it's like this, and I can't see your drawing, and you pasted it over the top of the drawing, you'll get 0 marks. And if it's that big, like, you know, I'm going to have to sort of stop everything, wipe the screen to see if I can see where it is. No, still can't see it. It's a tiny little dot. Well, you know, you're risking me not seeing it all. So put it beside these. In model space, you don't have to do a viewport. In fact, if you do a viewport and all that, you'll lose marks. So that just needs to be in model space with the, in fact, I only want to see this bit, the corrected quantities. I don't want to see that bit, just this bit with the total. Now, if that says negative cut, what do you think it is? Phil, exactly. No, sorry, no, half mark whoever said that. So, yeah, and I just want to see that column over here, about that size, corrected quantities. So I think, to me, if I can't remember, it's on your assignment sheet. I think it's 3 marks, don't quote me, might be 2. Pretty sure it's 3. Easiest 3 marks you're going to get off me. It's almost something, but you've got to do your contours in here first on the butterfly wing, or else you're not got much show of being able to do that properly. I do sheet 1 on everybody's. You know why? Because if I find out that your one of those is not right according to your drawing, I'm starting to think where you got it from. Because it is very easy to go cut and paste from your friends and go, oh look, I've done the quantities right. And the other thing is that students get very, they get confused because they think that these numbers and these numbers here should be the numbers at the very end, but they're not. This calculation sheet I'm going to go over in a few minutes. Now also this will be in the test, just to add a wee bit more weight to it. I'll be asking you questions from that in the test. So I might say, for example, how is an end ratio found? Or how do you find the final corrected quantities? Or what is the average sum of the end areas? Which I'm about to go over now, okay? Now this sheet here is on Moodle. I want you to save it somewhere, even if you put it in downloads just for the moment. Open it up and we'll use colours because I think it's the best way of explaining it. Most of you are probably, well, I'm making an assumption here. My father once said, never make an assumption, son. You're the one making the umption, but you're also making the ass as well out of yourself. So, yeah, don't necessarily make an assumption, but I will say most of you probably know what some basic coding is on Excel. But I'll go over it anyway, and I'll show you. There is a bit of coding in here that's come from the world mathematician champion, so that's pretty cool. I'll say that with hand on heart. He's actually written most of the software for 12D, and that's where the code came from into this. It's actually in Civil 3D as well. So it's both of the main programs used in Auckland embedded in this little bit of coding in here. So how does the spreadsheet work? Okay, well, first of all, we've already gone over this, but I'll say it again. These, they can start anywhere. They can start from 0 to 1 million, whatever, and they are changes along the road. So they're accumulative distances, I guess is the best way of putting it in English. These are the cut or the fill, whether you get a 0 or you get a number. You put it in here, in each of those columns. And really, you can't be much more basic than that in terms of easiness. The average sum of the end area, well actually, you think back to this morning's lecture, it was area 1 plus area 2 divided by 2.
Yes.
That's your average sum of the end area. So if you get that question in the test, it's pretty straightforward. So in other words, what I like to do here is I like to format myself so they're all 4 decimal places. You'll see why in a minute. Right. So this is, for example, the fill, and over here, the average sum of the infill. If you look up the top, it's D8 plus D7, so the previous one. You add those two up and divide it by 2 to get that number there. Let's do a cut. That one there, different colour, is equal to the previous one plus the change that we're on, divided by 2. Pretty straightforward. The interval we've talked about. The interval is the distance between two of the changes. So that interval there is equal to the distance between two of the changes. You would think that that would actually be part of the formula, but it isn't. We've actually got to put that in. Quantities. Well, if we do a quantity now, the quantity is equal to G7 times I7. So let's look at, say, this quantity here. That is going to be equal to G7 times I7. So it's the interval times the average sum of the end area. Now that is where we got to in about the year 1930. That was their best calculation guess at the volume. And of course then along came the correction factor, or the prismoidal correction factor. In order to get that, we need to find an end area ratio first. So the end area ratio is probably the most confusing of the lot. There it is there. Can anyone break that code? If C11 is less than C12, then C11 is divided by C12, or C12 is divided by C11. For half a mark, can someone tell me what that means? I personally don't know myself, so it's going to be pretty hard to tell.
What's the question? Can you repeat the question?
It's up there on the top. It's the question's up there in the formula.
I12 divided by C.
I didn't quite hear all that or piece it together, but I think a bit of a desperation dive at a half a mark here going on. I'll tell you what, when you come up for here, I'll tell you the answer. And it's to do with ratios and not Shakespeare's ratio, which I hated. The ratio, that's her ratio. A ratio is always less than 1.
6.9850 divided by 7.
So what happens here is yeah, I've got a bit of an echo going on in the room. I'll just tune it down a bit.
C11.
Did it?
So it's like the ratio of the average sum of
Sum of
n.
end areas.
So and the end areas. So you go, if we consider the 12th line, we go 6.950 divided by the 7.650.
Oh,
You're half right. I can't give away a quarter mark. So you're left dangling there, I'm afraid. Never mind. Let's go over it exactly. So this end area ratio here. Use purple. That is equal to C11, which is
613.
actually we'll do that here. That's equal to C11 divided by C12. However, what that means, that formula, is that if C11 is bigger than C12, then we put C12 on the bottom so that it makes the number less than 1. If C11 is greater than less than C12, then C11 goes on the bottom. Alright, so the little number is always on the top, which is the exact opposite to carrying fruit through customs and all of a sudden those great big custom officers jump on top of you, right? Try it one day. I dare you to. Come back to New Zealand and start eating a banana as you come through customs.
That's a bad idea.
Yeah, it's a real bad idea. There's about 6 of them in there, and they'll just jump on top. So you have the big fellas on top of the little fella. That's the exact opposite to what I'm trying to explain. The little fella is always, well, it could be fella, is always on the bottom, top. So it's that opposite to bullying at school as well. I think I like the customs idea better. How do I know? Well, actually I got in trouble with customs once, and they are big fellas. My 15-year-old daughter was having a bit of a spat at me, like they do at that age. And they asked her whether she packed her bags or not. And she said, no, he did, and took off through customs without me. And I started trying to explain very nicely that I didn't pack a bag, that she packed it. She's just having a wee bit of a shitty at the moment. And as I raised my voice, more and more of these big customs guys started arriving. So I decided at the last, when there was about 5 of them, it was best to shut up. So, yeah, I probably did the same with every bit of fruit that comes through the airport. And I don't really know why I'm telling this story, so the N ratios are always little one on top of big one. Let's try the next one. The N ratio of 0 is, oh yeah, there we are, that one divided by that one. Now here's the correction factor. And this time it's 2 bonus marks, if you can tell me what that means. There is one man in the world that knows what it is.
It's me.
Is it you?
Yeah.
Go on, get that bonus mark.
2.
I guess there's a pretty high chance that it could be a thing, because there's quite a few of them in the world. But unfortunately, I don't know his name, but that formula up the top there is the one that I've been banging on about. And what it does is it adjusts each time for the row. It looks at that there. It looks at the size of the number. It compares it with the other numbers that are there. And it says that the adjustment is going to be this much, or in terms of how much you have to adjust your final answer. So it is going to be that. This is the bit students think it's that times that. It's not. It's that times the cut there, 2749, and you see that there's just slightly less for that row. Okay. So to find the correction factor, we need to find the end area ratio. Once we get the end area ratio, the correction factor will come in here. Note the correction factor for 0 is 0.6670. So that's the prismoidal. Of course, these add up down the bottom and they give us a corrected cut-off fill. So that sheet should be available on Moodle for you all to colour code or do what you like with it. Take it with you. If you manage to sell it to anybody, I want half the profit. I would say, having taught 2,500 students over the years, there's a fairly high probability that most people have already got this in some format somewhere trying to impress. Oh yeah, and by the way, you won't impress a boss in an interview either, because it's probably one of my students that's already got it. So that's not going to happen. Rolling back to the class exercise, which is disappeared on me. Here it is here. This should also be there. So what it is a housing development, and there's the numbers there up the top, and the answer is down the bottom, which is the same as what I had on the board before. So what you would need to do if you wanted to practice doing this is to make that a blank sheet. Keep the formulas in there, just delete the numbers that are there. Put that first row down here, second row down there, third row down there. Work out the changes and put them in, and the answer will flow across. So you could actually practice, without looking at that final answer, you could practice doing it before you did the assignment, just to make sure you got the hang of doing it right. All right? Fine, it should equal that. So that was all I really wanted to go over with you. It's 45 minutes down. If you want to carry on with your assignment, you've got time to do that. You've all paid to have your bottoms on the seat till 2 or 3 o'clock. You're welcome to go if you want to. You're welcome to stay if you want to. This is when the class student starts earning their $100 an hour. No?